This is Generation Human Rights. And since I reported in Bosnia many years ago, and yes, I'm going to invoke my mother. I know that's a little cliche, but it's true. When I went off to cover the war in Bosnia, I was in my late 20s, and my mother was horrified. She's like, "Why are you going to Bosnia? You know, you're crazy." You know, and it was just this distant war that people didn't care about in the U.S., to be honest. Tom Nagorski's here, who was the foreign editor during the war in Bosnia for ABC News. He and Peter Jennings helped make America understand what was happening there. So that was the context of Bosnia and my mother not understanding why I was going there. In a later chapter in life, I spent 5-6 years covering the war in Afghanistan. And human rights was much more part of the conversation in Afghanistan and in this country. And it's a sort of personal passion of mine that this generation, whether they're young Americans or young Afghans, believe in universal human rights. And there's some talk and some criticism that somehow human rights is a Western idea, and that particularly in the Islamic world, they're not interested in human rights. And you know, if you went to Kabul today and raised that with young, educated Afghans, they would fiercely, deny it. And they completely accept it as these are their basic rights, and they want them, and it's not simply a cultural issue. My mom wasn't thrilled I went to Afghanistan either. And a final thing in terms of how human rights has changed and how this curriculum is so valuable and how young people are going to want to learn about this and are much more sort of citizens in the world, and how even attitudes have changed. My wife is 7 months pregnant. We live down there about a dozen blocks or so, and my mother was here last night for a visit. And this is, years and years of why are you going off to this country, why are you going off to that country? And my mom's sitting on the couch last night, and she's like, "Can you believe this story out of Nigeria? That they kidnap these girls. It is their right to have an education. This is absolutely outrageous." And she's basically saying, "Why aren't you writing something about this?" And then my wife, who's 7 months pregnant, and I will be completely honest with you, said again last night and said a couple days earlier, "Why aren't you writing about those fuckers who kidnapped those girls? It's outrageous." And in this little mini evolution of my mother and my family and in our society, human rights are universal now. This curriculum, the work of this group, will make it more universal, and it's just a wonderful thing to go from heading off to Bosnia, where nobody really cares, nobody talks about human rights. It was wrong that the Serbs were sort of shelling markets in Sarajevo, but that was not in a human rights context. Whereas now, my mother immediately says it's, a woman's right to an education is universal and cannot be questioned. The work of this group and so many others has brought us here and will continue, I think, to spread that amazing message. And again, I thank you all and thank Sally as well for having us all here. And I now want to introduce Ron Haviv, who more powerfully captured the struggle for human rights from Bosnia to Afghanistan, all over the world. His images evoked this issue and why we as human beings should care about it more powerfully than anything I could ever write. He's become a friend of mine, and it's an honor to be here with him. And now you'll hear from Ron. Thank you.